Okay.
Good afternoon, everyone. We're just allowing everybody to enter the room, and we hope there are many of you because we have a really exciting session ahead for anyone who's serious about going to Europe with an MSCA fellowship. So we just give everybody just a few seconds to join us. We're live streaming this also on the Euraccess ASEAN Facebook page. So if you know someone who's sitting in a meeting, but they have their Facebook account, you can perhaps direct them to our website.
Okay, Susan, I don't see your access anymore in the page to share it with. So okay. No, wait. I fixed it. I fixed it. Sure. All right. Okay. Going live.
Going live?
Yep.
Let me know.
Just give me some seconds.
No problem. So everybody, thank you so much for your patience. We're just about to rock and roll. And I hope everybody can come in today. Just give me a sign, okay, Jenny?
All right, we are live. Perfect. Go ahead, Susan.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Jenny. And a very warm welcome to all of you joining us this wonderful afternoon for a special Euraccess ASEAN session. And we're looking today at practical tips and advice on how to draft an efficient and hopefully successful proposal for a Marie Skłodowska-Curie Postdoc Fellowship. As you know, the call is currently open. It closes on the 13th of September. So you're joining us at a perfect time to listen to our expert speaker today on what you can do to improve your chances to get one of these super prestigious fellowships. My name is Susanne Renzo-Vaso. I'm here with my colleague, Dr. Jenny Almaco. She's behind the scenes, setting up our Facebook live stream, and we're both the regional coordinators of the Euraccess project here in Southeast Asia. And we're joined today by an expert speaker. And she is the lady that will tell us what to do to get this grant. She is Anne Nierobisch, Dr. Anne Nierobisch. She's a European advisor at the UK Research Office in Brussels, and also one of the 2 UK national contact points for the Marie Skłodowska-Curie Actions, the MSCA. She's a researcher herself. She holds a Master of Research in Chemistry and also in Statistics from Oxford University in the UK. Anne, the floor is yours. In a second, I just wanted to say she's joining us from the UK, as you know, and I know a lot of you are interested in seeing whether they can perhaps do this fellowship with a British institution. So she's our lady to tell us all the details about this. And I'm going to hand over now to Anne Nierobisch. The floor is yours, Anne.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Susan, for this very kind introduction. And thank you all for joining us today. Today, I will be talking and hopefully giving you the best advice I can on how to apply to Marie Curie European Fellowship. I will give you practical hints, but I will also introduce you to just, the basics. And I will give you a lot of detail and a lot of, further links you can check. But we also will be having a Q&A session. So this is on our agenda. As Susan mentioned, I will first quickly introduce you to the case relationship to the EU and whether you could apply with UK host institution. I will outline Marie Curie to you, the policy aim, and then I will explain to you what Marie Curie European Postdoc Call Fellowship is about, the budget, and how to find a supervisor. As this is not the main focus of the session, I will focus more on the practical tips and other considerations, which are the third and fourth part of my session. If you have any questions, please put them in the Q&A box. We will go through them at the end of the session. Please also be aware that this event is recorded, and this event and the slides, I understand, will be uploaded following the event. So the first question on everyone's mind, or most people ask me, is what is going on with the UK? Can I still apply with a UK host to a Marie Curie European Fellowship? The answer is yes. as you might well know, after Brexit, the UK and the EU had a lot of negotiations on their future relationship. And as part of this negotiations, they agreed that it was in both their interests that the UK would associate to Horizon Europe. It was agreed that UK entities eligible to participate in and coordinate Horizon Europe projects, that includes Marie Curie. And sorry, I forgot my laser pointer. And this Q&A confirms the UK eligibility to participate in Marie Curie European Fellowships as a host. I've summed this up, summarized this for you on the slide, so you can see what the UK is eligible to do. But if you have any questions related to Marie Curie Postdoc Fellowships with UK-based host, you can send them to me and my colleague at this email address. Again, the slides will be circulated after the event, so you can just click on the link and just email us directly. Then I will introduce you to the Mary Skłodowska Career Actions. There will be just a very brief introduction about the policy goals, so that you understand what this scheme is about. And then I will go into more details on the call itself. I know there's a lot of information in the slides. Please be aware that I'm not going to go over everything, but this is basically just a list which you could use later on as a reference for yourself, basically to recap that you, even after the presentation, feel fully confident that you have all the information you need to understand what the scheme is about. So Marie Curie is one of the funding schemes under Horizon Europe. It is very prestigious, and the main goal of this scheme is to equip researchers with the necessary skill to have successful research or career out of research. So it's about career development. And Marie Curie, this funding scheme, can be summed up as follows. It's working on a research project which has training aspects for the researcher. So it's not only a research project you will be working on, it's also a training project for the researcher. So there will be funding available for you to receive training, entrepreneur skills, training in giving speeches, lectureship, whatever you can think of, as long as it's relevant to you as a researcher, as a developing person, you know, with future career goals, etc. So basically, Marie Curie, in a nutshell, is really about equipping researchers with new skills, training researchers, and thus ensuring that researchers come to Europe, that there is, you know, building Europe's capacity for research and innovation, and making sure that we have trained researchers available who will work on European, let's say, research and innovation projects. The Marie Curie Postdoctoral Fellowship, in a nutshell, follow directly from these goals. So with these fellowships, the European Commission, or the EU, wants to establish a cohort of creative and innovative thinkers who are well-trained, well-rounded, who have intersectoral, international, interdisciplinary mobility, meaning, you know, experience in both the academic and the non-academic sector. That would be intersectoral. International experience, meaning you have moved countries. For example, you, as you know, located in Asian countries, would be eligible to come to UK or to come to European countries, and thus have this international mobility. And also an interdisciplinary aspect at times, which means that you can move between disciplines, or you will bridge disciplines. And it's really making sure, encouraging you to have the training, the skills, everything you need for a long-term career in research or outside of research. Okay, so just to get started, I don't know what you know, so I'm not sure about, you know, what my audience is, who is my audience. So I will just give you a very brief introduction to European Fellowships. Please note that you can find all the links with all the relevant information below. But to flag, researchers of any nationality can move to a host institution located in your member state or Horizon Europe associate country from here for 12 to 24 months and work on a research project which includes training aspects for you as the researcher. So the funding you will receive would cover all the costs related to your fellowship, your salary, costs for research, training, and career development, and also any costs the host institution might incur while hosting you. But just again to flag, any nationality, this scheme here is open for any nationality. But the point being is you must move. I always get the question, do I have to move? Yes, you must move. You must move to a host institution in an EU member state or Rising Europe associated country. This is not relevant for you as this might not be as relevant for you as the other scheme. There's also the global scheme, and this one is only open to residents or citizens, also long-term residents or citizens in EU member states or Rising Europe associated countries. However, this global fellowship has an aspect that legal entities which are not located in EU member states or Rising Europe associated countries are eligible to host the outgoing phase of the global fellowship. Before the presentation, I've been informed that there might be representatives from Asian institutions in this meeting. I would just like to flag that you are eligible to host the outgoing phase of the global fellowship. Please find more information here. If you have any questions, please contact this email address. But this might not be relevant for the applicants themselves in the room, but this is more as meant as a reminder for the potential host institutions in the room. I would just like to quickly go over the eligibility conditions. Please note, these are all the eligibility conditions, all on one page. Please have a look at the guide for applicants if you decide to apply. Please have a look at the work program. Please confirm that you're eligible to apply before you apply, because we've had very good candidates who didn't check their eligibility before applying and then they were ineligible. So again, just be very clear whether you can apply or not. In European fellowships, you can be of any nationality. Check. You must be in possession of a doctoral degree at the call deadline. So if you're currently still a PhD, but you will receive your PhD before the call deadline, which is the 13th of September this year, then you're eligible to apply. Or basically, you must have successfully defended your doctoral thesis. There's a mobility criterion. You cannot have carried out your main activity, work, studies, in the country to which you want to move to. So let's assume you want to apply with the University of Cranfield in England, for example, or University of Cambridge, maybe as another example, in England. You cannot have lived for more than 12 months in the 3 years immediately before the call deadline, so 13th of September, in England. If you have, lived in England for more than 12 months before the call deadline, you're not eligible to apply with UK-based host institution. You could apply with a host institution located in other member states, but you cannot apply in the specific country you have been living or residing in or working in. If in doubt, please contact us. I've given you my our email address on a previous page. If you want to apply to UK institution and you're in doubt, just contact us, and we're happy to give you further information or just have a look at your information. One last criterion, your research experience. You can have only a maximum of research experience, full-time equivalence, from your first doctoral degree. If you've been working part-time or if you haven't spent time working research, this would be deducted, but you must check this eligibility criterion. And this limit can be extended if you've taken maternity leave, paternity leave, compulsory national service, or if you had career breaks, if you had spent times not working in research. Again, I would encourage you to check the guide for applicants, and I will also give you further links at the end of the presentation where you have guidance to check your eligibility. But again, before you apply, please make sure that you check whether you fulfill these eligibility criteria, because you don't want to work on proposal and then find out you're not eligible. Very briefly, because I'm aware that the main part of this presentation will be on how to actually write a good proposal, but I would just like to flag the budget, the grant you will be receiving, so that you're aware of the money being involved. So there will be monthly unit contribution. So for every month you complete as part of this fellowship, you will be receiving this funding listed in this table. This part corresponds to the salary of the recruited merit postdoctoral fellow. So basically, you'd have to check basically if you're hosting an institution about taxes, etc., because you will be employed on a full employment contract with all Social Security. I'll be talking about this later. But basically, this will approximately correspond to your salary, but please check with your host institutions about, taxes, etc. You will be receiving research training and networking contribution. And this covers any cost related to your training, career development, any cost related to your research project. And if you choose to do secondments to other, institutions, other countries, as part of a research project or training project, this would also be covered. The last column would cover any general cost of your host institution connected to organizing and implementing the fellowship. So if you're in talk with a host institution in the UK which is going to host you can always say, look, we're getting a lot of money to host me, and they're no. So Marie Curie is very well known in the UK. Please find more information on the budget table here. So, and now we can really go in a little bit detail of how to write a successful application. First of all, I would like to flag that you really need to understand what the Marie Curie Postdoc Fellowship is about. Because we always have applicants who write a really good research project, but they completely miss out on the training aspects or career development aspects for themselves. And then, I'm sorry to say, you will not receive the full marks, even though you probably have written a very good research proposal, because what the European Commission, what you wants to see is training for you. It's a research project, but also training. So really take advantage of this. It's about developing your research skills to advance your career or, to advance your currently. Transferable or complementary skills. If you have entrepreneurial aspirations, how to become a good entrepreneur, courses for that. Or if you want to become a lecturer, courses, I don't know, to become a good lecturer. I don't know, I've never aspired to be one. But basically, every one of you might be thinking about specific courses or specific, career development goals they might have. And basically that you think about how will this research project and this training project support me in reaching them. And please be aware that there must also be a knowledge exchange taking place between the researcher, all the institutions involved, and the supervisors. So if you go on secondment somewhere, you must learn from this host institution, but you must also provide them with knowledge. There must be some way of knowledge transfer going on. Again, in a nutshell, it's training through research. So what are the benefits? So for the individual researcher, it's an increased set of skills and also improved employability and career prospects. And it's a reputation gain. It's basically equipping you with all the skills in your future career, basically to become a successful researcher or to become, a successful individual working outside of research, but making use of the skills you've learned during your fellowship. For the host organization, associated partner, there's basically, they must provide you with the equivalent research training and supervision. And there must also be a knowledge transfer between sectors and disciplines. So ideally, it's not a must, there must be, ideally, there could be a project involving, other host institutions, so secondments. There could be a project involving interdisciplinary aspects, or movement between the academic and the non-academic sector. So, for example, we've had candidates who then went on to work in industry, also in the non-academic sector, for 6 months following their postdoc fellowship, and this was all funded as part of the fellowship. But it's basically building a network, not only for you, but also for your host institution. And it's very important that this is part of the proposal that you really state basically, okay, we'll have knowledge transfer. So the supervisor. The supervisor is a very key integral part of your project, and there might be, supervisors for potential global fellowship in the room as well. So I'll be very, I'll stress this at this point. The best proposals we've seen are those where the supervisor really developed the proposal with the potential fellow, where they read through it, where they really, said, look, I will be providing you with this training. Or the host institution was really clear on what training they would provide to you, what facilities they have, what unique facilities they have. Because you'll have to justify why you're applying with this particular supervisor, why you're applying with this particular host institution. And it must be very clear in your proposal why you have chosen them. And if you can say, this supervisor is the best because of expertise, facilities, supervision, training, that's all needs to go into the proposal. So the appropriate level of supervision depends on the career stage of both people, needs of the project. However, please note that you must be adequately supervised. And you need to think about how the relationship will work on a day-to-day basis. And if you have less experienced supervisors in the room, they can still be supervising you, that they should include a mentor in their proposal. So if there are any, supervisors you're interested in, but they're less experienced, they can include a senior academic as a mentor, and then they're also fully eligible to participate. Find your supervisor. I've provided you here with the most commonly used forms of finding one, the different websites where hosting offers are published. And also I would encourage you to make use of this website, which includes a list of all the merit pre-NCPs in Europe. Okay, for you as a researcher, something you really need to think about is, do you have the maturity? Do you have, are you at a stage where you basically will be able to develop an independent research project? And are you able to clearly demonstrate the skills you've reached up to the stage, the competencies, and do you know where you want to go next? So basically, not only where am I now, but where will I want to go next? And then also think about how will you be integrated in the team or institutions. So really think about what will I get from, doing a research project at this particular host institutions. We've had fellows clearly stating they have this library and these facilities, which I need for my social sciences project, which I can't find anywhere in the world, and which will then help me to gain my next career stage, become an expert in this field, and then return. As long as you're very clear, all fine, but just be clear to yourself that this is an independent project. You're now at the stage as where you should be able to develop your own independent projects, or at least reach independence during the fellowship, and that you can be part of a transfer of knowledge, that you are giving knowledge to the host or institution, and you're also being trained in knowledge. And your proposal must have a clear scientific, but also clear training goal. Sorry, I'm just checking the time, but I'm good in time. So your research proposal must have a very clear research questions. We've sometimes seen research proposals where basically I wasn't quite sure what the fellow was talking about. So be very clear that your research question is clear, that it is realistic, well-defined, and that you consider all the aspects listed above, which I will now go over in detail. So this is more meant as a reference slide for you, which you can go back to after my presentation. This is another slide, basically in line with what I was talking about. The previous slide referred to your research goals and objectives. This one refers to your training needs. Again, this project, and I know that I'm sounding like a broken record. I'm not apologizing because we've seen this mistake happen too many times. It is also that your project has to include training as part of the project. So really think about, will you be receiving training for the research? The research you're doing and the training you receive, will this have an impact on your long-term employability? Will this wire on your competencies? Is the training based on the research needs of the project? So there has to be a link. We've sometimes seen interdisciplinary projects, but they were really, really well thought through and defined. And also make sure that there's really high quality supervision and two-way transfer of knowledge. Think about why do you want to go on a specific secondment. We had applicants, successful applicants going on specific secondments that were very well justified and explained why these were relevant to both the research project and their career and their training needs. And think about the budget as well. As I said in the previous slide, you will be receiving budget to fund your research, but still, it's good to think about the budget and be very clear about it. So these are just some examples for training and transferable skills. I would encourage you later on when you have more time and I'm not talking at you to just sit down, think about who am I, what do I want to be? Are some of these examples relevant for me, or what do I, particularly want to be trained in? Please be aware that a career development plan will be a mandatory deliverable if you're successful. So you will receive a career development, or you will develop a career development plan with your supervisor, and which will be constantly updated throughout your fellowship. And you just need to think about all these questions here, basically. What do you want to achieve through this fellowship? what you want to achieve that isn't possible, without participating in it. And really think about the training activities you will need to achieve your goals. I know that I'm going a bit too fast, or I hope I'm not going too fast, but again, this session will be recorded, and you are welcome to get back to it and have a listen to it later on, and also have a look at the slides. Okay, supervision and the mentorship. In your proposal, or for your proposal development as well, really think about the role between your supervisor, mentor, and yourself, and consider what the fellow will need to learn from your supervisor or other mentors, and what kind of activities would be useful. And make sure that you not only learn from your supervisor, but other team members, other colleagues, other webinars, training aspects. And you also must provide your knowledge and experience to your supervisor and colleagues. So for example, if you have specialized knowledge which could be useful to your host institution, you would be thinking that you would be, I don't know, giving teach for very small amount or something, or that you would state that you would transfer this knowledge to them as well. Let me just check the time. Yeah, we're good in time. In proposals, and this is still, on the part of proposal development, there are also some cross-cutting issues which are getting more relevant, I understand, to not only the EU funding programs, but also UK funding programs and other funding programs. They are often, completely new to new applicants, who are just starting to apply. So I thought it would be best to talk about this aspect of gender, open science, dissemination, communication, exploitation, so that you feel fully prepared to understand what they mean and address them in your proposal, because you need to address them. In the end, I will also provide you with all the links you need to find your proposal template. But for now, just listen to me on these aspects, because that's where we've occasionally seen interesting, let's say, ways of addressing them in the proposal. First of all, the gender equality, diversity, and inclusion aspect. The European Commission has made it one of their goals that gender and intersecting socioeconomic inequalities are addressed both in their policy, but also in their research projects. So in the research project, the European Commission is funding. They want to see gender aspects addressed. For example, think about, assume you're a researcher developing a new seedbed, as a very rough example. In your proposal, you need to be very clear that your seedbed will not only be developed, let's say, for men, but also for children, for women, for people of different, basically for everyone. You need to make sure that you're stating in your proposal that you will be exclusive, how and when. It could be considered that some research has no or very limited gender dimension. I know. My favorite example is that one when a geologist came to me and said, I work with rocks. What do you think I should put under gender? I'm working with rocks. How can I actually, there are no female rocks or no male rocks, or what do you think I should put in? The first thing I need to be very clear on is you need to be very clear in your proposal on the gender dimension, because this will be part of the evaluation. And you need to be explicit in the proposal. You can't just leave it out, because this will be one of the evaluation criteria. So if your project, now I'm coming to it, if your project does not relate to gender, explain that gender does not relate to your project. They want to see that you thought about it. You cannot just ignore it. You must think about it. You must be very clear in your proposal. And then you can think about other aspects related to gender. For example, what is it to the geologist? Maybe there are fewer female geologists in your field. Maybe there's a gender imbalance. What would you do to address this? You could go to schools and talk to young students, especially girls, on becoming a geologist. You could train female researchers. There are a lot of things you can do, dissemination, communication, training, but you need to be very clear on how gender relates to your project and what you will basically do to either have a gender component in your project, or how it absolutely does not relate to your project. But don't just leave it out, because they will notice and you will lose points. Also, open science is something you must address in your proposal. So you must be thinking about what publications or what results, what outcomes will I get out of this project. And if you produce research data, so if you produce laboratory results or programs, basically for programming, all research data must be managed in line with the FAIR principles. Please have a look at them later on. And a data management plan is a standard deliverable if you're successful. So your data must be made available to other researchers. If you're thinking of exploiting yourself, that's not an issue. The maxim is as open as possible, as close as necessary. But you must think about how you want to, what you want to do with your research results. You cannot, again, ignore this point. You must be very careful in, detailing this in your research proposal. Sorry. So this is also an aspect you need to mention in your research proposal, in your American research proposal. And for those of you who are interested later on in working in more Horizon work projects, this aspect, the gender aspect, and the aspect I will be talking about in a second, are now aspects that will have to be addressed in Horizon work proposals. You can't leave them out. So if you're already working on a research project in research discipline, it is really a good idea to take some time, think about them in detail, and then reuse that material for future applications, for example. This might be for those who are a bit more advanced, but really think about it. It's not just for this proposal. It might be also relevant in the future for future proposals. The last point, dissemination, exploitation, communication. These aspects will also be evaluated under impact. And I would really like to flag here that UK institutions often have teams that can help you. And it's really important that you contact your potential UK host institutions as early as possible, and that you are really frank in asking, hey, I might need help here. Can you help me? Because they've seen this all the time. They see all the time, all these questions, and they can help you, but they need to know that you need the help. But now about these different points, what do they actually mean? Okay. Dissemination, if you produce a resource, any kind of research outcome, disseminate it amongst your peers, so other researchers, publications, Twitter, any conferences, any way basically of disseminating it so that other researchers can pick up your research and, work with your research results. This is because the European Commission wants their results to be used. They give you funding, for your research projects so that you are trained, but they also want that the research that, that results from, that the outcome that results from the research will also be used further. So you're not working for nothing. Your research is actually meant to be used. Exploitation. This is basically that your research results, if you intend your research results to be used for commercial purposes or public policy making, that you present a plan. Basically, if let's say you are currently, I don't know, if you tend to do a social study, a social survey on, I don't know, poverty, is there an aspect to it that you could use it for public policy making? Communication, also it's not mandatory, but basically if you have these kinds of aspects, make sure that you mention them, that you're very clear, and this needs to be evaluated. It needs to be clear for your project. Communication basically means not communicating among your peers, but basically communicating to the general public. For example, think about, I don't know, going to schools, talking to students there, a Twitter page, a web page, writing blog articles, participating in research magazines, we are writing about your research. Any kind, basically, where you detail your research activities to, society. These are some things to consider here. And I would really like you to think about the target audiences. So for dissemination, it would be your peers, so conferences and publications, etc. For communication, it would be, more the general public. Exploitation would be anyone who could exploit it, public policymakers, commercial actors, and really think about what do they need to know, what are the actions and the results. Okay. Now, we always get questions about the policy documents because there's always a slide, there are always questions about, there's some policy documents mentioned in the Merit schemes. How do they refer to me? What do I need to do? For this reason, I will also detail the policy documents of relevance to you now, and hopefully help you understand how they relate to you and why you should be aware of them. So Merit has a lot of policy documents. And the one that I think is the most relevant for you, given the time we have, and which I want to outline is the Code of Conduct for Recruitment. In this Code of Conduct for Recruitment, the European Commission has set 4 guidelines on how you should be recruited and what kind of contract, etc., you should be receiving when you become a fellow. As fellows, and I should have mentioned this under the budget, I mentioned this under the budget, but I just want to flag it again. You should be receiving an employment contract with full social security contributions. So basically, benefits in case of illness, these kinds of things, maternity leave, these kinds of things, basically. And this is also something that your host institution should discuss with you. And this is something that I would encourage you to have a look at. Have a look at all of these, but particularly this one, because this is something that will be of relevance to you if you're successful and if you're being hosted by an institution. Then the Merit Guide for supervision. We all know that research projects might go south and there might be no breakdown in communication, might be, not a must. And I would encourage you to have a look at the Merit Guidelines for Supervision, because Merit has compiled a list of recommendations, and these these recommendations are to be implemented on a best effort basis, basically how the relationship between you and your supervisor slash mentors should work. And part of it, there should be sufficient training for you as the researchers and professional development for supervisors as well. What Merit or the European Commission is doing, or why they are funding you, or why they would be funding you, is you do research, but you also receive training. And this training, think of it this way: the university will receive funding for your training. This training should be sufficient, should be the best possible for you and your career aspects. There really need to be clear training goals. There really needs to be training, career development objectives in place, and best supervision possible. You should be adequately supervised. That needs to be in place. And there also should be transparent procedures in case of conflict in place. I would encourage you to have a look at this publication. Again, the slides will be uploaded after the event. Then there's also the Merit Clean Charter. This is not part of the evaluation criteria, but it's a set of guiding principles which basically is encouraging you that if you're working in a Merit project, that you reduce your carbon footprint. So think about sustainable behavior if possible. Again, it's not part of the evaluation criteria, but it will be reporting requirements. So the European Commission is really trying to make their research projects go green. So, okay. These are the evaluation criteria. I'm not going to go through them in detail because I know there are a lot, but it's basically everything, most of it we've already discussed. But really think about these 3 criteria. They are weighted. Think about the quality of your research project. Think about the proposed methodology, but also think of the training you receive in the 2-way transfer of knowledge. So make sure you have a really good research proposal, but make sure that you also have the adequate training, etc., and transfer of knowledge to describe your proposal. Make sure that you explain the outcomes and impacts and dissemination exploitation, but also how this project will help you in your career development and in your future employability, and any expected scientific, societal, and economic impacts. You don't need to have all 3, by the way, but if you have all 3, or if you have 2, describe them. Don't leave them out, they will be evaluated. Because I've seen people saying, yeah, I'm just leaving them out, and I was like, why would you do this? And also be very clear on the capacity and quality of your hosting institution. Don't assume that the evaluators will magically know that your hosting institution is the best one ever. They need a very clear description, and that's why it's so important, especially on this aspect, to work with your hosting institution as early as you can. So basically making it clear what facilities they have, how you will profit from them, what makes their facilities unique compared to other universities or other non-academic hosting institutions. Sorry. Sorry, I'm going a bit over time, but just give me a second. This year are the proposal advice and guidelines. And the one thing I would really be clear on, read all call documentation and read the evaluation criteria and write your proposal with these in mind. Don't make up your own criteria because it will not go well. One of the things we've always seen is that if applicants make up their own criteria, then the evaluators will basically grade you accordingly. Make it very easy for the evaluators to find the information and use very clear and concise language. And what we found that often helped was if you finish your draft as early as possible and then have colleagues proofread it with the evaluation criteria in mind. So really think about the evaluation criteria. Pitfalls to avoid. I'm not going to go through this in detail. I'm just leaving it here for your reference. But really, one thing we've seen is a work program or work plan that is too broad. And the timing of the planned activities was not very well justified. So it's literally like, I'll be doing X, Y, Z. But even I, as someone not in the field, could see that there was not sufficient time. It was not, very well planned out. And if evaluators see these things, they will grade you. Again, it's very competitive. Many people, many applicants, there will be many applicants who will apply to this. So really make sure that you avoid these pitfalls I've listed here. This is the timeline. You will need to submit on the 13th of September 23 at 5 p.m. Brussels time. If you submit later, I'm sorry, nobody can help you because that is the final deadline. I would encourage you to submit early because only the last submitted version is counted. So you can submit as many times as you like before the deadline. And we've actually seen people start a proposal early and submit again, but only the final version that is submitted will be counted. And again, please don't submit on the last day because that's when everyone will be submitting and that's when the servers will crash. Okay, just one last slide, Susan. Basically, again, I would encourage you to have a look at all the resources and we'll be holding free and detailed webinars for those who want to apply to UK-based schools, and you can sign up here. With that said, thank you very much and apologies for going over time, Susan.
Thank you so much, Anne. No problem at all. I mean, if you're giving us so much really valuable information, you're happy to go over time. So thank you so much. That was, I think, really insightful, very, very helpful. I hope all of you have been taking notes, and I see that a lot of questions are coming in, Anne, so I'm going to ask them not in order, but I'm trying to organize them a little bit. We are posting this on various platforms, so I'm looking to combine them from different platforms. Now, the first one, while you're maybe catching your breath a little bit, the question that we always get, and I answered that myself, is where can I find a host? And I'm just quickly going to share my own screen here because I want to show you where you can find hosting offers. And the hosting offers are primarily on the Euraxis database. We have a hosting offers database. I'm going to put in the chat box the link, and you can see here I've already put in that I'm looking for hosting offers specifically for the 2023 MSCA Postdoc Fellowship Call, and you can see 400 offers are waiting for you. And I, in fact, have a second website to show you, and this is, here we go. This, in fact, sorry, I have to go back. Takes a little while because we are putting on here. You can see here, we're putting on, in fact, 2 days of matchmaking. On the 5th and the 6th of June, you have the opportunity to meet representatives from these countries who will be explaining the various hosting offers that they have available for you. And again, I'm going to put in the chat box the link so that you can look at that. But I'm sure Anne also has information how you could find potential hosts, maybe in the UK, Anne.
Unfortunately, we do not have a general UK dedicated. Let me just show my slides again. Apologies, just quickly. Unfortunately, we don't have a. You can see my slides. Unfortunately, we don't have a general UK, UK specific website. However, come on, I just need to find it. I had a slide here where you can find your hosts. So these are all the websites we commonly encourage applicants to have a look at. And UK institutions are publishing on these websites, but I would also strongly encourage you to just cold email potential supervisors directly, because that's also one of the things we've seen where, applicants met their supervisors. Again, I'm just a flex, Susan, sorry if I'm, the proposal you submit must be the best one with you, the supervisor and the host institution in mind. So don't pick, let's say, a very prestigious university because you think you need to pick the best university. You need to pick the best one that's the best suited for you, your research project, and your research training, career development. You will not be, graded higher if you go in with a better, with a, Ivy League university. You need the best university for yourself, for your research.
Thank you so much, Anne. And as we said, there are lots and lots of resources online where you can find a potential host. But as Anne said as well, it doesn't have to be someone from the top 10. It's really more important, apologies, that you are a good match. There is a question I want to ask that in this context, because at the beginning, you told us that this is really a fellowship that, or an action that offers circular mobility. So we also have the global fellowship. And just while we're talking about hosts, we have someone here who I think is representing an institution, and they're perhaps considering offering themselves as a potential host for an incoming student. What would be the criteria for an institution in ASEAN that would like to host a global fellow? Are there any criteria or any that they need to fulfill?
So basically, the only criteria you need to fulfill to this gentleman or this lady in the room is that you must be a legal entity. So you cannot, you must be legally validated by the European Commission. I can send Susan some information on that. But apart from that, there are no criteria. You just must be a legal entity, legally established in this country. And you must, on the funders and tenders portal, check basically that you have been legally validated, and then you're able to host. It's just making sure that you're not some, company, which is a bit, let's say, who might just take the money and run, to say it bluntly.
Thank you so much, Anne.
Sorry, I'm German. I can be very blunt.
No worries. Thank you so much. Maybe just to summarize here, we have an anonymous attendee, and he or she is asking if you could just quickly summarize again the steps in which order the applicant should approach this entire project. What should they be doing first, and how should they proceed until the deadline?
Okay. The first thing you should do is determine whether you're eligible. Because if, for example, you have more than 8 years research experience post-PhD, full-time equivalent, then, for example, you would not be eligible. If you, I don't know, I've been working for 15 years in research, full-time equivalents, then it's no use, even starting, because you would not be eligible. That's the first step. Then you must identify your host, so your supervisor and your host institution. You can do this. I had the slides here. You can do it this here. So basically contact them or just identify your host. Then get in contact with your supervisor and your host institution on the research project. With your supervisor, agree on the research project. Work with them on the draft. The host institution often have teams in place, research support services, but also ethics teams or communication teams or open science access teams. Be very clear basically to them what help you will need to develop the proposal, and really work with them on the facilities you'll have access to. Because the best proposals are those where the research is clear, so you and your supervisor working together, but also where you are very clear on the training you receive, and whether you will receive specific, unique training tailored to you from the source institution. So in your proposal, it must be very clear why you, why the supervisor, why this research/training project, why the source institution. So, and also just one personal advice, just make sure that you submit early. Also, you can of course submit as often as you like before the deadline, but don't submit any last day. Personal advice. So,
thank you. Yes, thank you so much, Anne. Now, there are also a couple of people who are asking here about the evaluation. You've already told us that there are 3 criteria that are being employed, but someone is asking for a little bit of more explanation. Is Michael Ulef? He is wondering again, what is the weighing of each category for this scoring? And perhaps, and this, I think this is a related question, it comes from Rayus, and Rayus is asking, what does it mean by beyond state-of-the-art in evaluation and excellence?
Okay. No, thank you very much. Apologies if I went a bit too fast in the end, but this was more like trying to get you to equip with the most with everything. So first of all, these are the 3 categories, and you can see the weighting at the bottom here. So excellence will be weighted 50, impact 30, quality, and I think efficiency of the implementation 20%. You can find the criteria, by the way, here in the web program. All these, you need to write your research proposal with these criteria in mind. And if you go on the call web page, which I've linked on one of the last slides, you will get a proposal template from the European Commission. Follow this proposal template, you really see like point 3 with questions which you then need to fill out basically and address them. So these are the criteria. You will receive a proposal template when you start the application on the call page. And with regards to the question this gentleman asked, beyond the state of the art, yeah. So basically, don't, in a nutshell, I mean, I'm going to be brutally German blunt here. In a nutshell, don't just submit a proposal basically where it's, let's say, very clear what the research outcome will be. Submit something which is innovative, which is ambitious, which goes beyond, we'll do X and we already know it's going to be Y. Just we're going to do X, and it's very ambitious. It will bring us forward because of, you need to really think about the impact. You need to think about that it's more than the current, what's going on in the research landscape. I hope that made it clearer. Not sure.
Thank you, Anne. Very quick question. Someone is asking, is there an interview at the last stage of the evaluation?
No interview. It's literally only a proposal that will be evaluated. So that's why, again, why I'm stressing, really think about, the proposal you're writing as early as possible.
Thank you. And I believe the interview, the proposal itself is also reasonably short, correct?
I think, yes. I need to still look, I haven't had the time, but I still need to look at the criteria. But you will find all the criteria, you will find all the proposal template, apologies for jumping, you'll find everything here. So every documentation, everything will be available here, and you will find the formatting rules, you'll find everything, you just follow the template. And by the way, don't try to argue it, they really are very clear on what you need to do.
Thank you so much. Now also, hopefully a quick question. You've already told us that the UK can still host fellows. Yeah. Now there's a question about Switzerland. Is it the same situation for Switzerland?
I must admit that I'm not a Swiss NCP, so I'm a bit, so what I understand, Swiss is considered a third country. They are not associated, so I think they will be eligible to host the outgoing phase of a global fellowship, but not host European fellowship. However, to the person asking the question, I would really strongly encourage you to contact the Swiss NCP to confirm, because I am the UK NCP, so I would try to stick with what I know. You'll find the Swiss NCP on the Marie Curie Net page. I put the link on a few slides back, so just contact them. Or just contact them here. You'll find the link for the Swiss NCP on this web page. Just contact them.
Thank you so much. And I think my colleague Jenny, who is an NCP, has just added some information in the chat. So that's some interesting information there as well. Now we have a couple of questions also on the secondment. Now, first of all, is a secondment necessary. I think you've said it isn't, but how do you make it a valuable addition to your proposal? And then maybe as an add-on, someone is asking, is Ute Cox, apologies if I pronounced this incorrectly, is it allowed to include a secondment in the country where the applicant is currently based, as long as the mobility requirement is met for the main host? So meaning they're going somewhere, perhaps they are in Germany, but they're choosing a host in France. Can they do the secondment in Germany? I presume that would be the question.
Yeah. No, let me just answer this in the order that I was asked. Apologies for not including a secondment slide, but you've already seen that there was a lot to cover. So first of all, as part of a European fellowship, I'll concentrate on European fellowship for make everyone's life easier. You can do secondments. It would be up to 1/3 of the completed duration. So if you do 24 months, you can only do secondments up to 1/3. You can secondments in anywhere in the world. So you could go, I don't know, to China, you could go to US, anywhere in the world. You could, I'm going to address the other question first. With the secondment, it's not a must. Don't try to shoe in a secondment if you think it will look better in your proposal, if you have no idea why you're actually doing the secondment for. Because again, the evaluators will check basically why you're going to do secondment. Has this, impacts on your research project? Has this impact on your research and training career development? Don't shoe in anything, as don't try to fit something in just because you think it will look better. If you can't explain it or justify it adequately, leave it out. Because we've had people, trying to find a good, to include a secondment or include a non-academic placement, and they couldn't justify it. And then it was more like, yeah, you can't justify it. So have you really put thought into this? But basically, secondments are not a must to confirm. If you want to put them in, think about them carefully and how they will add to your project. But again, not a must. We've seen projects being successful without secondment. Sorry, to quickly answer the other question about secondments can be in anywhere in the world. And if, for example, you've been previously based in Germany and now, I don't know, you're doing your MSCA Postdoc Fellowship in the UK, you can return to Germany for your secondment. That's not an issue. The mobility criteria only has to be fulfilled for the country you do your postdoctoral fellowship in.
Excellent. That's a good answer, and hopefully that puts the person who's asking on the way. Now, there's a couple of questions on budget. First of all, someone is asking how to calculate this. So how can we calculate the budgets of the fellowship? Can the host professor provide information? And I think this is quite an easy answer. But the second question related to this perhaps is, in fact, let me just give me a question here. Does the scheme fund research costs as well? If yes, is there a funding cap? So it's basically, I guess, a question, how do they have to draw up their own budget? And secondly, what does it cover?
Okay, so, first of all, let me just explain to you how you calculate. I'm sorry if I'm talking a bit more, but I think it's fine to make it that. So, calculating your entire grant would be, you need to think about for how many months you're applying. So if you're applying for 12, 24 months, it would be calculating all these contributions with the number of months you're applying for. Then this would be your salary you're entitled to, and you just have to basically check with the host institution about taxes and how you're being taxed and the employment contract. This funding is funding you receive for your research project. This funding will also be funding you receive for your research activities. I think the gentleman or lady who asked about what is my funding for research, you will be receiving 1,000 euros a month. So if you have a research project of, I don't know, 24 months, then it would be 25 multiplied by 1,000. So 24,000 euros for your research project. There is, I understand, at least in the previous years, there was no necessary justification necessary for your budget. So you didn't need to detail your budget. However, if your budget goes severely over the budget that will be given to you, this one here, I would encourage you to talk about alternative funding sources in your proposal. So we've had someone who, I think they went severely over budget. They included that they were applying to 3 other grants at the same time to cover additional costs. I hope that was sufficient.
It was indeed. Thank you, Anne. And we are, in fact, also almost running out of time, but I'd like to ask you just two more questions. One question that is reaching us from a different platform, and that person is asking, could you give us some examples of dissemination and public engagements? I believe that refers to one of the evaluation criteria, and perhaps you could give us some examples.
So, yeah, no worries, because that's always a tricky one. Can I start with communication, please? So communication activities, any time you communicate to the general public. This could be like you go to schools and talk to little kids there, or go to kindergarten. You have a stand at a science fair. You have your own blog and you reach out, to the general public explaining what your research is about. It could be Twitter. It could be your own website, but really made up in a way that's, not professional, but it's, for the general public. There are a number of different ways I've seen. I think there were other innovative ways where people, made models of their chemistry molecules in chocolate and distributed them. I've seen other interesting ways, but anytime you communicate to the general public in a way that's adequate to your project. Dissemination is really about communicating to your peers. Also, it's not only this, but that's how I usually like to think about it. It is communicating to your fellow researchers, conferences, research publications, having your website, promoting yourself, in whatever way that's most suitable for you. Conferences are usually the main way. And that's what I would include in proposals. The conferences you intend to go to, the the publications you intend to publish, communication. What kind of communication activities will you do? Will you have a blog? Will you have a website? Will you go to the schools and talk to the kiddies? These kinds of things, basically. And it must be adequate for your research project. So it's your research project that drives this.
Thank you so much, Anne. And maybe the last question, which is always incredibly relevant, but we tend to forget it. And the question is, where do the applicants find the documentation to apply, and where do they apply? And who, in fact, presses the button?
So, because I was trying to be very helpful here, I have this last slide contains all the information. Every information will be made available on this website here. So basically, just click on this link. You will be taken directly to the call web page. This is where you'll find the proposal template. This is where you'll find the guide for applicants. This is where you find everything else. This is basically where you download everything. This is where you start your submission. You can make your own account. You can write your own proposal and submit everything in there. But what we found most helpful in the past, and what we've seen, what actually happens is you write your proposal and it's the host institution that submits on your behalf. That's just something where I would encourage you to get into contact with the research team at your host institution and talk to them. Just really like, this is general, what is going on. And if you look on the Mary Queenet website, I think they have a list somewhere on what best to do. But really, this is the main web page. Everything will be explained there. And if you have questions, contact us.
Thank you so much, Anne. And that has brought us really to the end of today's session. There are, in fact, more questions. We will also respond to those of you who we haven't had time to cover during the session. I know Riska is asking, and we can see that at the end, whether you can apply with more than one institution in different research proposals, and the answer is no, you cannot.
No.
You cannot, exactly. You really have to dedicate yourself to one idea and one institution and really make it as good as possible so that you will also be off to Europe next June. This is how long it takes. I believe the evaluation starts around November, December, and then by February, hopefully you will know whether you're on your way, and by June you can start picking up or taking up your postdoc research. Now, again, thank you so much to Anne. She has provided us with a lot of information. She has already kindly agreed that she will share her slides with us, and we, Jenny and I, will of course make sure that you all get them. So don't worry. If you ever have a question, you can email us, you can email Anne, you can use, of course, our fabulous NCP network And they are wonderful people, always at hand and always willing to give you further advice. Now I'll hand back to my colleague, Jenny, to close this session for us.
Thank you so much, Susanna, and thank you so much, Anne. So just quick reminders that we will have matchmaking sessions. Susanna already said that, and also please help us improve, the presentations and also the content. We would like to make sure that you are getting what you need, because we want you to be successful in your postdoctoral journey with the prestigious Marie School of Security Action. So please help us with that, and keep in touch with ASEAN at euraccess.net for your emails. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you. Goodbye.